Do you feel guilty when you say no to someone asking for help? If you just felt a tightness in your chest, it means you've been programmed to believe that your worth depends on how much you serve others. Carl Jung discovered something terrifying about this. Only 2% of people understand the real danger you're facing, and now you're going to be one of them. And it doesn't stop there. You also feel invisible when you need support, don't you? You're the first choice for problems, but the last for celebrations. How many times this week did someone call you only when they needed something? And when you needed a shoulder to cry on, where were they? Let me guess. You stayed up late last night thinking about someone else's problems. You gave money to someone who promised to pay back, but never did. You cancelled your own plans to solve a crisis that wasn't even yours. And the worst part? You felt good about it in the moment, didn't you? Carl Jung knew there was something deeply disturbing about people like you. Not because you're bad people, quite the opposite. Because you're the perfect prey for emotional predators who can smell your need to help from miles away. Here's what Carl Jung discovered that 99% of therapists don't know. This isn't kindness. It's a deadly psychological addiction. You're not helping people. You're feeding a compulsion that was programmed into you, probably before you could even walk. Jung called this the wounded healer complex, and he realized it was one of the most dangerous psychological patterns because it disguises itself as virtue. The person suffering from it genuinely believes they're being good, while they're actually destroying themselves cell by cell. Think about it. When was the last time you helped someone and felt truly fulfilled? Not that brief rush of being needed, but genuine, lasting satisfaction. You can't remember, can you? Because each time you help, you need to help more. Each time you save someone, you need to save another. It's not helping. It's addiction. And just like any addiction, it attracts the wrong kind of people. Narcissists, manipulators, energy vampires. They have a sixth sense for people like you. They can spot your need to be needed from across a crowded room. You weren't born this way. You were trained for this. Somewhere in your childhood, you learned that love equals sacrifice, that your value equals your usefulness, that being needed equals being loved. Maybe you had a parent who only showed affection when you were solving their problems. Maybe you were the little adult who had to take care of everyone else's emotions. Carl Jung understood that this pattern doesn't develop randomly. It's always the result of childhood emotional neglect or trauma. The child learns that the only way to receive attention, love, or even basic safety is to become indispensable to others. What Jung discovered will shock you. People who compulsively help others aren't actually empathetic. They're traumatized. True empathy has boundaries. True compassion includes self-compassion. What you're doing isn't love. It's a survival mechanism that's no longer serving you. The most terrifying part? You've been attracting the exact type of people who will exploit this pattern. Narcissists don't target random people. They target people with unhealed wounds that make them perfect supply sources. Now I'm going to show you exactly how Carl Jung identified this pattern in his own life and patients, and how you can break this cycle before it completely destroys you. Because what I'm about to share saved my sanity, and it's going to save yours too. The answer lies in what Jung called conscious compassion versus compulsive caregiving. Most people don't know the difference, and that ignorance is literally killing them. You're about to learn something that will change how you see every relationship in your life. If you're realizing that your kindness might be slowly killing you, you're not alone. There are thousands of people in this community who discovered the difference between helping in a healthy way and self-destructing for others. If this makes sense to you, subscribe to the channel. That's how more people like you find this freedom that Jung offers. Carl Jung first noticed this pattern in his own life. As a young psychiatrist, he found himself constantly trying to heal everyone around him, taking on their pain as if it were his own. He was working 16-hour days, losing sleep over patients, and slowly burning out. Sound familiar? But Jung was brilliant enough to step back and ask the crucial question, why do I need to heal others so desperately? What he discovered in his own unconscious changed everything. He realized that his compulsion to help wasn't coming from a place of strength. It was coming from a wound. Jung discovered what he called the wounded healer archetype. This is someone who becomes obsessed with healing others because they're desperately trying to heal their own unprocessed trauma. But here's the twist. By constantly focusing on others' pain, they never have to face their own. He wrote in his journals, "The doctor is effective only when he himself is affected. Only the wounded physician heals. But when the doctor wears his personality like a coat of armor, he has no effect." This sounds positive, right? Wrong. Jung later realized this was the trap. The wounded healer becomes addicted to being needed because it's the only way they feel valuable. They become professional fixers, but they're never truly healing anyone, especially not themselves. In his work with patients, Jung noticed a terrifying pattern. People who compulsively helped others were always surrounded by people who compulsively needed help. It wasn't coincidence. It was psychological magnetism. The helper and the helped were both sick, feeding off each other's wounds. Jung identified 7 clear signs that someone's helping had become pathological. Pay attention, because if you recognize yourself in 3 or more of these, you're in immediate psychological danger. First sign, you feel anxious when you're not solving someone's problem. Normal, healthy people feel relaxed when there's no crisis. You feel useless, worried, like something's wrong. Jung realized this anxiety isn't compassion. It's withdrawal from your addiction to being needed. Second sign, you attract the same type of needy people repeatedly. Jung observed that wounded healers don't attract healthy people who occasionally need support. They attract energy vampires, narcissists, and people with chronic victim mentalities. If every relationship in your life follows the same pattern, you give, they take. You're not being kind. You're being a magnet for predators. Third sign, you feel guilty when you prioritize your own needs. Jung called this pathological altruism. Healthy people understand that self-care isn't selfish, it's necessary. If putting yourself first feels like a moral crime, you've been programmed to self-destruct. Fourth sign, you justify other people's bad behavior. They're going through a hard time. They didn't mean it. I'm the only one who understands them. Jung recognized this as a defense mechanism. You can't admit that people are using you because then you'd have to stop helping, and stopping feels like death. Fifth sign, your relationships are transactional. People contact you when they need something and disappear when they don't. Jung noticed that wounded healers rarely have friends. They have clients who don't pay them. Sixth sign, you feel responsible for other people's emotions. If someone's upset, you automatically assume it's your job to fix it. Jung understood this was a trauma response, not empathy. Children who grow up in dysfunctional families learn that they're responsible for regulating everyone else's emotions to keep the peace. Seventh sign, you can't say no without feeling physically ill. Jung called this boundary dissolution. Your nervous system has been trained to interpret saying no as a threat to your survival. Jung's test was simple. Imagine saying no to the next 3 requests for help you receive. If that thought makes you panic, you're not helping from love. You're helping from fear. Jung didn't just identify the problem, he created a solution. He developed what he called conscious compassion, and it's the antidote to compulsive caregiving. The first step is what Jung called withdrawing the projection. You need to understand that when you compulsively help others, you're not seeing them clearly. you're projecting your own inner wounded child onto them. You're trying to save yourself through saving them. Jung's technique. Before helping anyone, ask yourself 3 questions. First, am I helping this person because they genuinely need support or because I need to feel needed? Second, will my help actually empower them or will it make them more dependent? Third, am I helping from my strength or from my wound? If you can't answer those questions honestly, don't help. Jung learned that help without consciousness is harm disguised as virtue. The second step is what Jung called differentiating. You need to understand where you end and other people begin. Most compulsive helpers have what Jung called boundary confusion. They literally cannot tell the difference between their emotions and other people's emotions. Jung's exercise. Every time you feel upset about someone else's situation, stop and ask, is this my feeling, or am I absorbing their feeling? Then physically step away from the person or situation. If the feeling decreases, it wasn't yours to begin with. The third step is the hardest. Jung called it embracing your own darkness. Compulsive helpers are usually people who can't tolerate their own negative emotions. They stay busy fixing others so they don't have to feel their own pain, anger, or sadness. Jung's shadow work. Spend 10 minutes every day sitting with your own difficult emotions without trying to fix them, escape them, or blame them on others. Just feel them. Jung knew that until you could be present with your own pain, you'd keep using other people's pain as a distraction. The fourth step is learning what Jung called ruthless compassion. This means having enough love for someone to let them face their own consequences. Real love sometimes looks like saying no. Real love sometimes looks like letting people struggle so they can grow stronger. Jung discovered that the kindest thing you can do for chronically needy people is to stop enabling them. When you constantly rescue people, you're actually stealing their opportunity to develop resilience and self-reliance. Jung's approach works because it addresses the root cause, not just the symptoms. When you start helping from consciousness instead of compulsion, everything changes. First, you'll notice that healthy people start entering your life. Jung observed that when wounded healers heal their own wounds, they stop attracting wounded people. It's like changing your energetic frequency. You start resonating with wholeness instead of brokenness. Sarah, one of my community members, followed Jung's method for 6 months. She was a nurse who couldn't stop taking care of everyone: patients, family, friends, strangers. She was exhausted, broke, and alone despite being surrounded by needy people. After implementing Jung's conscious compassion practices, she learned to help professionally without taking work home emotionally. The needy people in her personal life either stepped up or stepped away. For the first time in years, she had energy for her own dreams. Second, you'll discover what Jung called authentic power. When you're not desperately trying to prove your worth through helping, you can help from a place of genuine strength. Your assistance becomes more effective because it's not contaminated by your own unmet needs. Michael, another community member, was the family fixer, always lending money, mediating conflicts, solving everyone's problems. His siblings treated him like an ATM with legs. Using Jung's boundary techniques, he stopped enabling their dysfunction. Initially, they were angry and accused him of being selfish. But within a year, his relationships with them became genuine for the first time. They started relating to him as a brother, not as a resource. Third, you'll experience what Jung called individuation, becoming who you actually are instead of who you think you need to be to earn love. Most compulsive helpers have no idea who they are underneath their helper identity. When you stop defining yourself by how much you serve others, you finally get to discover your authentic self. Jung's most profound insight was this: The world doesn't need more wounded healers enabling dysfunction. The world needs whole people modeling healthy boundaries and conscious compassion. When you heal your own compulsion to help, you give others permission to heal their compulsion to be helpless. The transformation isn't just personal, it's generational. Children who grow up watching healthy boundaries learn that love doesn't equal sacrifice. They learn that they're valuable for who they are, not what they do for others. Remember, Jung never said stop helping people. He said stop helping people from your wounds. Help from your wholeness. Help consciously. Help with boundaries. Help in ways that empower rather than enable. The most radical thing you can do in a world full of takers is to stop being an unconscious giver. When you heal your need to be needed, you become dangerous to every narcissist, manipulator, and energy vampire in your life. They can no longer control you through your compulsion to help. Jung understood that true healers aren't people who never get wounded. They're people who heal their wounds consciously and then help others heal theirs. But the healing must come first. You cannot give what you do not have. You cannot teach what you have not learned. You cannot heal others while you are still bleeding. Start today. The next time someone asks for help, pause. Ask Jung's 3 questions. Feel the difference between conscious compassion and compulsive caregiving. Your future self, and everyone you love, will thank you for learning this distinction. Because here's the truth Carl Jung died knowing. The most loving thing you can do for the world is to become completely, unapologetically whole. Everything else is just sophisticated self-harm disguised as virtue.